All right, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Better Business Roundtable. And this is where we explore biblical principles that when we apply them to our businesses, they will contribute to the overall success of the business. Today, well, I'm not sure if we're all aware, but we are in that season where we are looking at mental health awareness. And I thought, what else can I do? Right. I don't think I have any other option but to invite Maz, our expert in mental health, to speak to us about, how we can just ways that we can improve in our mental health. And I know for sure that this is needed, especially in, with everything that's going on in business. Sometimes it's so difficult. Sometimes we go through loneliness in business. Sometimes we go through just those dealing with these obstacles and we don't know how to face them. And sometimes we feel that as business owners, it is our duty to push through, maybe day after day after day, sometimes not getting much sleep, not looking after ourselves, because we need to get this thing to work. But we have to look after ourselves. And we have Maz there to tell us all about it. So I want to just remind us, with the Better Business Roundtable, all recordings will be found in the guide section of our Facebook group. Right, all recordings will be there. Also, connect with each other. I believe that it is important to build relationships because you don't know who the next person might be, that person who will help you to take your life, your business to the next level. We just don't know. You don't know. So I believe in connection, building relationships. So let us do that. And anything else? No, that's about it for me as far as housekeeping. Well, we will have our time of to listen to Maz. She will share with us, and then she will be running it. So at whatever point she decides we'll have discussion, we will have discussion. So that will be fine. So without further ado, I just want to introduce Maz Alexander. Maz is somebody I appreciate a lot. I admire, and I look at Maz as a strong woman, a very strong woman. And even after reading her book, which is Arise Kintsugi Queen, after reading that book, it even give me a deeper appreciation for who Maz is. And Maz, before I introduce you, I just want to say thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for just don't change. When I say don't change, you know what I mean. Don't stop being you. Yes, because we need people like you. We need more people like you on this earth. And I personally greatly appreciate you. And I thank you also for the value that you bring to the Roundtable all the time. And I know that what you're going to share with us today, it will be of great value as well. So I won't waste any more time. I will now hand over to our speaker for this morning, Maz Alexander.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Janet. That got me emotional. I was thinking, oh, she's giving such a great intro. Who's she talking about? That person sounds wonderful. It's me. So I appreciate that. I really do. And you've poured into me, and it's been great to be part of this network. So I have a short PowerPoint presentation, which I'll be sharing, but for the purpose of Maina and others who are maybe not be familiar with me, just a quick intro. So I am Maz Alexander. I'm based in London, and I wear many hats, but my passion for mental health actually came in childhood. My mother was a psychiatric nurse. She used to take me to work, and back in those days they had asylums. So whether you were unwed mother or you had actual psychiatric illness, they put you all together. And I remember thinking one day, I'm going to let them all out. They shouldn't be in here. I'm going to release them. And in a roundabout way, that's part of my work and my ministry that I do now. So yes, setting captives free, whilst also freeing myself. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the relationship between our faith, mental health, and how that applies to our business. Now, let me just share. And let me know, Janice, when I share, if you can see it, because I have had some technical issues. Let's see. Right, Janice, give me a shout. Can you
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, right. Let us crack on, because this is I've had to make some changes to this one as well. So this is what it's all about. And please, it's a short presentation, but if you want to put questions in the chat or any commentaries, and then I think at the end of the presentation, then we'll have a discussion. Okay. So the aims and objectives of this presentation are very straightforward. We want to raise awareness about mental health and well-being. As I said, we're going to discuss this topic in relation to our faith and business. We're going to discuss how this impacts on our personal and professional lives, and we are going to look at solutions and coping strategies at the end. So that is it. The whole ethos of this is centered around this verse found in 3 John 1, chapter 2. Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health just as your soul prospers. And I think sometimes we interpret that verse to mean that we, financially prosper. But it's talking about in all aspects of our being, in all aspects, your business, your marriage, with our children, with whatever we set our minds and hearts to do, we need to prosper. So that's it. I find that if we look at this scale, we are going to be in one of the domains, depending on the season of life that we're in. Now, prospering would mean we want to excel. We want to be thriving in whatever we do. But often we can be stuck in survival mode. Maybe it's the cares of life, whatever has happened, it can cause us to stagnate and remain for a long time in survival mode. We're in autopilot, or, we may be struggling. We're not always in crisis, but as the saying goes, if you're not in crisis, you're going to be ready to go into one, or you're just coming out of one. And that is the cyclical nature of these things. But ideally, we want to have this abundant life that is mentioned in the Bible. And that requires us addressing all aspects of our health, not just one. And because we're in business, yes, we will tend to focus on, how we are productive, how we generate funds. But we're going to just focus today, because there are other aspects of health, many different aspects of health. But for the purposes of today, as it's Mental Health Awareness Week, we are focusing on our mental health. Because it's something I think as Christians and as business owners, we tend to think, oh, this doesn't apply to us. So let me start by saying that when I'm talking about mental health, I am referring to the way we think, how we behave, how we act. Our thoughts, our processes, the action we take. So therefore, it involves all of us, because we all think. As long as we're alive, we all think. We all are influenced by those thoughts. So I want to make it clear as well. I'm going to take the World Health Organization definition. So when we talk about mental health, we're not talking necessarily about mental illness. So they say it's not just the absence of mental disorder. It is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential. They can cope with the normal stresses of life and can work productively, fruitfully, and you're able to make a contribution to their community. That was the definition. They still use this overall definition. And it's what many governments base their policies on when they're thinking about mental health in the workplace. So if you think about this, there were times where we're not able to be as productive as we like. A big example that affected us all was the pandemic. We weren't able to do these things. Many of us were overwhelmed. Some of us, yes, we thrived, but we had to pivot. It presented a challenge that we'd never seen before. So our mental health would have fluctuated during that season. And there's been many other things, but it's estimated that 1 in 4 people, at least, I should say at least, because the figure is probably higher, 1 in 4 people in the UK will experience a mental health problem across their lifetime. And that's quite high, actually. And the figure is probably higher because not everybody will report an issue. They may not seek any guidance, medical assistance, or anything like that. And that often is because of the shame that is associated with that. Okay, let me just move on. Okay. I just want to mention that our mental health is, yeah, it's on a spectrum. Like I said, it depends on the seasons. So you can have poor mental health, by the way, without having a mental health diagnosis. It doesn't mean that you are diagnosed with anything and you're mentally unwell. If we take, for example, we were just discussing this before, grief. If we've had bereavements, your mental health is not necessarily going to be the same as it was prior to that loss. If you've, it's because you're a human being. It's not, how can it be the same? It's not going to be the same. So you may experience low mood. You may have symptoms that you're not used to dealing, and very, what we call undesirable emotions, but they're emotions that God has given us. So we are not permanently in a state of joy and all of these things and positivity. There will be seasons that challenge us, and I just want to emphasize that it is perfectly normal. There are many, I think we dismiss this sometimes, there are many biblical leaders and examples of where people were just, life was life in. David in his book of Psalms, the whole book of Psalms is a perfect example of that, how you can feel overwhelmed with those human emotions, and rightly so. And Elijah, Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, we wouldn't necessarily, I think we overlook that, and they did great things in their afflictions. So I think this is why we need to have these kind of awareness, not just weeks and months. It needs to be at front and center in our churches, in our businesses. Because if we are better able to take care of ourselves, then we can take care of others, we can serve others. And we spend most of our life within our businesses or at work. And it's our source of income. So when we have that gives us fulfillment, but we cannot have thriving businesses if we are not well ourselves. And I believe that, as the scripture says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So what we have up here is essential, because you could be physically fit, you could be wealthy, but how are you going to sustain it if you are not well? So this is an example from the Mental Health Foundation. I don't know what you call it in the States or what have you, but here, you take the car for the MOT. You take it for its services, usually annually, because you want to check that, it's roadworthy. Is it operating as it should? Is it, doing what it has the capacity to do? And we do that with our physical objects and other items, but sometimes we neglect our own selves. So emotionally and mentally, how are you doing? What's going on? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you feeding your mind? What are you consuming? So this is, I like to use this for myself. I also use it for my clients because it's good to have a check-in with yourself, just to see what is going on. So that's called the whole self MOT. And I wanted to also just emphasize before I go on to the next slide, that, as I keep mentioning, depending on the season we're in life, we need to adopt new strategies for coping, because what worked for you 10 years ago may not work now. you know. On here, or it might not be on here, it talks about the stress bucket, and how full is that. And I can send these resources afterwards. But I also wanted to mention the fact that we need to have a holistic approach, because we are tripart beings. So essentially, we are comprised of at least three components: mind, soul, and body. And when we address our clients, when we address ourselves, we need to take that into account, because otherwise, like in the work we do, when we can sometimes just treat the symptoms, and that is like putting a plaster on a big gaping wound. It will not, it's not enough. And we need to get to the root. I wish Dr. Reeva was here, because she talks about getting to the root, and I believe we do need to address any issue beyond surface level in order to be effective. So understand that when our mind is affected, our bodies and our spirit will be affected too. So we cannot, it's like the wheel of life. I don't have it here. We cannot successfully operate. Well, we can operate. We might be doing well in certain areas for a while, but inevitably that dysfunction will spread to other areas. So we need to bear that in mind. And I just say that because as Christians, sometimes we don't tend to focus too much on the mind. Everything is spiritual, and that's fine. And that's why we need awareness, because I'm still hearing things from people like, oh, that's not my portion. When I did a similar presentation a few years ago, a lady, she kept shouting out that this is not for Christians. This is not for us. And we don't have these issues because we think that we're exempt from life's troubles. It's like saying my house doesn't get dirty because it's clean. I'm a Christian. No, you have to clean your house, because it will get dirty. Despite how, even if you have a show house, you have to do maintenance. And it's the same with our bodies and souls. And people, especially those of us within the African diaspora, we think that, no, we're just going to pray everything away. We have to toughen up. And we think that this is a secular thing, and it is not. These kind of attitudes can hurt people and prevent them from recovery. So just be mindful about that. Whatever is affected in the mind, the spirit and body will also be affected. Now, why does any of this matter? Why are you going on about it, Maz? Well, because it starts with us first. We are leaders. We're leaders. Even if you're not actively in business, you're leaders. You're leaders in your home. You're leaders in your community. You are leaders. So therefore, as the quote says by John Maxwell, as a leader, the first person I need to lead is me. The first person I should try to change is me. Yeah. So if we want to do effective work, kingdom business, which is our mandate, it starts first. We need to really be self-aware. Okay, let me just go. So, you can't quite see this this slide at the bottom, but I just want to address the issue as Christian, because we all speak Christianese sometimes. When we talk about mental health, when we talk about anything taboo, some of us have a habit of spiritual bypassing. It's defined here by John Wellwood. Oops, sorry, let me go back. And it's the idea that we can overlook, avoid, pray away our issues. Now, prayer is important, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it's not, but we do ourselves a disservice when we overlook the pain that is in front of us. Here are some examples at the bottom. You probably can't see them. It's about not being like, Job's friends. So when somebody comes to you and they're afflicted in various ways, they're suffering, Job's friends accuse him, you must have done something. You're guilty. And they weren't very supportive. So when we make statements like, well, maybe God is just teaching you, like God is punishing you, that's why you're like that. You're feeling depressed because, maybe you have, it's a lot of Christians, oh, it's a demon. Everything is a demon. No, maybe I miss my loved ones. I miss the identity that I have. Maybe I'm just feeling overwhelmed because I'm not Superwoman. you know, which is perfectly natural. And I think not enough people talk about it. That's why we think that something strange is happening to us when and it's so common. If everybody would be honest and vulnerable, we would know that, oh, there's nothing new under the sun. And this is why Paul warned us about the fiery trials, and not to think that it was something strange happening to us, because it will come. So I just want us to be mindful of that. And certain predispositions we have as business owners. Janice alluded to it before. Um, they're not all the factors, but there's some of the factors here, especially for women in business. These are the things that can make us susceptible and have challenges within our mental health. So Janice mentioned the isolation. It can be lonely. Yeah, you might have family and what have you, but they might not understand what you're doing or share the vision. And you've got to be putting in the hours and the time, and you might not see the dividends, the fruit in the beginning, and you're thinking, am I mad? What am I doing this for? And there's little appreciation for what you're doing. That might not come for a while. And that's why I appreciate Janice with the thank you. I wrote that book, and everything I do has to have a purpose. It has to bless at least one person anyway. And yeah, this idea of linking self-worth to success. I'm going to talk a bit later about the notion of who we are being the doing and the having, because when that is taken away from you, you need to know who you are. What is your identity? We do networking all the time. Someone says, what do you do? Janice, what do you do? And we immediately identify ourselves by our profession or what we do. And that's natural because that is a part of our identity, but it's not all you are. It's not, Janice is not just somebody's mother. You're not just a business strategist. You're not just any of those things. When those things are stripped away, Janice at her core is, who God has designed her to be. So we need to not place so much emphasis on these things. We have heavy workloads. As I say, we work long hours. Sometimes our inability to delegate, because we're doing everything by ourselves, especially in the beginning. We might not have a team. Many of us are solopreneurs. We have to learn. We the admin, and it all piles up, which can contribute to that sense of social isolation. So speaking of burnout, many of us are not getting the help that we need. So we are prone to this, especially. We all know stress. That I don't think there's anyone in this room who is not familiar with stress. And stress can be good, but with too much stress, when our stress bucket is overflowing and we are overwhelmed, that is detrimental to your health. And it can cause all kinds of things, sleep disturbance, insomnia, high blood pressure, and various other digestive issues, so physical as well as mental health issues. But people who tend to, and I'm speaking professionally and personally, because this was me. I worked for a long time in the NHS, still do partially, and the local authority. And there are demands, there are targets that we must meet. And that can cause you to compromise. So I noticed there were common features in people who experience burnout. I didn't recognize this at the time, but we do tend to work longer hours. We're not good at taking breaks. So, you'll eat, and that's why you'll eat rubbish sometimes, overly processed food, because you don't have the time to cook and do the things that perhaps you would like to do. Sometimes we just have a misalignment with our priorities, so therefore we don't say no. We take on all kinds of things, and we think that we are being productive, but we're just busy with activity. So we need to know the difference. As I said, failure to delegate. We don't talk about our feelings. It's good that I think nowadays we have more of these forums. We can talk and share our business challenges, and that's good. But we may feel that we have to put a brave face on because we might think, oh gosh, I cannot tell Janice that I am struggling. She's going to think I'm a failure. We obsess sometimes about what other people think. So we just dress it up and say, yes, Janice, I'm making 6 figures. I'm doing so, and it's a lie. I wish I was Janice, but I'm not. But anyway, yes, we say that and we procrastinate, we do all those things that can hold us in captivity, really, and cause us not to be effective. So we don't want to be like the frog. You see this frog here? The one with the cocktail in his hand. Sometimes we're like that. There are occupational hazards associated with running your own business or even the type of business that you are in. So me working, and I still work in mental health industry, that is an occupational, that is to my own mental health. So I have to be mindful that there are certain stumbling blocks by nature of the work that I do. So the frog there is the burning frog metaphor. Some of you are familiar with it. He's chilling. He doesn't realize that the fire has intensified. The other frog is sensible. We need to be like this one who's jumping out the pot because he's thinking it's hot, I better get out. This one who stays is going to be cooked to death. He doesn't realize. So we need to sometimes know when to jump out of the proverbial pot before burnout takes hold, before depression, hypertension, diabetes, and various other things can affect our well-being and our health. So yes, I've talked about the fear of failure. So yeah, it comes back to self-awareness, learning to know what your patterns are, and gain access to help. When you're feeling that exhaustion, you're feeling overwhelmed, because as business owners, that's celebrated. We push through, and there are seasons when you need to do that. Yes, you do. And the Holy Spirit can give you that, that second win, and you keep, but know the difference. If you've been in a sustained pattern, you're not sleeping, your appetites change, you're becoming irritable, and all of that. You know yourself what's normal for you. Please just take note, just as you would with the car, when the lights on the dashboard flash up, it's warning you. Your body gives you warnings too. So take notice. So like I said, your health is your wealth, because if you are incapacitated, how are you going to run that business? How are you going to look after the family? So let's just move on to the next one. I mean, we are living in a fallen world. And like I said, none of us are exempt from this. So it's no surprise. Jesus himself told us that in this life you will have trouble. God's original design for us is primarily these 3 things. So we are here to connect, well, not in that order. Create. We need to create, we need to contribute, we need to connect. And that is what will make us fruitful, especially in business. And we're here ultimately to serve others, to further the kingdom. And we can't do that if we're not doing these 3 things at least. We don't feel fulfilled when we're not doing those things. We have to be doing something meaningful. And it goes back to, like I said, there are other components, but it goes back to this mandate that we have in Genesis. The mandate, I think it's Genesis 9. We are called to be fruitful. We need to go forth and multiply, so that we can have the things that God designed for us. Sorry, that's a bit blurred. So this notion here, I've spoken a lot about the mind, but like I said, we are tripart beings. So we need to think about our why, not just our why, but God's why we're in business. What's the purpose? And like I said, he's given us that mandate. So how are we showing up to be the person that we need to be? So we need to consider our skill sets. And here, this is taken from Robin Sharma's book, because he talks about the mindset, the heart set, health set, and soul set. So it's not just about the mind, although that is very important. My emphasis today is on the mind because that's where the enemy attacks us. That's where the battle is. But again, the heart set, I would say, is equally important. And we're going to talk about that. So when God told us to multiply, subdue, have dominion over the earth, there is a divine order which we must follow. And you've probably familiar with this, the be, do, and have, because often we get the order confused. So we think we need to have possessions, for example. We think if I have this, then I'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. And it's not. There is a, we must be. Who is the person you're becoming? Like I said, who are you authentically being? Because you might have a skill set and a tool set, but it's not going to be effective if you are not who you must become. You're not working on becoming. So it's about, you know, all of that through self-development, renewing of the mind. Even being in forums like this, we're learning, we're growing, we're changing. Every time we hear sermons, every time we get insights, we get revelations daily. That's why we're told to renew our mind, because we have some patterns that limit us and stop us from having what God originally intended for us. So remember, your tools are only as good as the person using them. It's like Janice mentioned about the book. I never used to, from I left university, and that was about 20 years ago. I'm like, read a book for what? That's a waste of time. Why am I reading a book? And it's only actually in the last 3 years I began to read and absorb, which is very unusual if you know me. Before I'm like, no, that's boring. But then that gave the appetite, and it was a God-given idea, because God sometimes does that. He's like, well, why don't you write a book? And I'll be like, who said that? That'll be ridiculous. Write what book? I don't write a book. I'm not an author. But what I say all that to say that through the developing and the renewing of my mind, ideas came, new ideas came. I was able to create that as which is a tool I use for my business. And it's you know, I can have the desired effect that I wanted. So remember that the biggest investment is in yourself. Just be mindful who is speaking in your life. We all have the inner critic, the saboteur, and we need to know how to silence that at times. But just remember, it's all linked to your purpose and your vision. So what you do is the goals that you have, how you're going to get, you know, to your business goals or whatever those are. You know, that's your mission. And when you have that's part of your vision. So, sorry, for time's sake, because I don't want to go over, let's just look here at some coping strategies. There are various ones, but it starts with acknowledging. If we are in denial and we live in denial about what is going on in our hearts, in our minds, we will not be able to get the help we need. We cannot be effective. So we need to cultivate environments, especially in the church, in business, where if somebody asks you how you are doing, we should be able to tell them without feeling, oh gosh, I can't say that because they'll judge me. And when you ask how someone is doing, please be genuine. Otherwise, don't ask them. Don't ask them how they're doing, because it promotes a culture of kind of deception. And it's a game of cat and mouse where, you know, it's very British of us to say, oh, yeah, you know what, you know, you should pop round one day. And, you know how I do. And I don't really mean that. And then Janice knock on the door and I'm like, what are you doing here? You told me to pop round. But yeah, let's be about what we say we're about. Let's mean it. think about for you and your business. I'm not going to go through all of these, just for time's sake, you can read them, but think about whether you have um, a well-being strategy for your own self and for you, if you have any employees. What does that look like? What if they get sick? They're off with stress. How do you manage it? Who will do the work? How do you support them? Do you have any policies in place? You might not need to because, it's just you're solopreneurs, but it's like I said, it starts with you. What systems in place do you have if you become unwell? And how does that impact on your business? Rest. The theme actually this year for Mental Health Awareness Week is movement. So they are emphasizing the need for movement. Many of us are stuck behind our computer desks. We might not have time, apart from you might do the school run, but we have to be intentional. And I'm finding this because when people used to tell me this, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, I'm not going to no gym. But my way of coping recently has been to walk. I'm not usually a walker and I'm not going to no gym, but walking, because actually I can have those CEO moments with God. I talk to him, like I said, my method is, and people might think, oh, that's crazy. I get on the phone because I know people are going to be looking at me. Sometimes I forget. I'm talking to the Lord. I'm like, Lord, so what do you think about this? Now, do you think I should target this? What do you think about the marketing? I'm having a meeting with the Lord. But I have to remember to be on the phone because otherwise people think I'm talking to myself. And I will walk. I will walk for 5 minutes and I may not get all the answers, but what I've done is I've communed with the Lord. I've gotten some exercise physically, and very often I get the clarity that I need. So let's be intentional, because I sometimes, when you're overwhelmed, sometimes you need to take a break. You're not going to be effective and deliver the work if you can't see the wood for the trees. Sometimes you have to remove yourself. So yes, all of that, avoid over scheduling. And there's a principle. I'm in favor of grace-based productivity. Like I said, we think sometimes that productivity is activity. Our diaries are full. We're running up and down. I've got this and this to do. Is it essential though? Jordan Rayner, in his book, Redeeming Your Time, talks about this notion of actually doing less to get more done. And I'm quite a fan of it. Like, yeah. Because actually it makes you more productive, because it's a false economy to cram in. You can do it. And I multitask all the time, which is not very good. You can do it for a while, but then it slows you down. You become a bit slower. So it's not helpful. And like I said, we've talked about meaningful activities. Finally, just and boundaries essential, but I think I've spoken to you guys about that previously. But accountability, spaces like this, do not go through these things by yourself. Have accountability. So whether that's your pastor, your business coach, Janice, whoever that is, it's important to share these things so that you know that you're not on your own. And like I said, the final message really is knowing that even if you are you have a disability, physical, mental, or maybe you don't, maybe you're just having a hard time and life is stressing you, you can still be effective. And like I said, I go back to the leaders like Elijah. Imagine Elijah. Let's not forget, and I'm not going to go into suicide prevention and all of that, but that's for another day. Elijah was suicidal, He wasn't just he was suicidal. And Elijah called down fire from heaven one day and the next, and this is how our emotions fluctuate. We can be at the top and then we can very easily be at the bottom. So Elijah, David, Jeremiah, Job, all of those still, in a roundabout way, fulfilled their mission and their purpose. They did what they were called to do. It took a few detours around the way, but we can do the same. So thank you. The final thing we're going to discuss, sorry, I may have gone over, these things are for you to think about. So we need to know what our triggers are. Do we know when we're stressed? What are our mental health needs? What are your triggers? how do you measure success, and what strategies have you got in place to protect that? You know, guard your heart. We're told to guard our heart in the Bible. What do you do? How do you do that? What does that look like? So that is the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening, guys. Feel free to share any takeaways. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Maz. This was absolutely amazing. Thank you. Thank you. So many things. I have a whole paper full of notes. Thanks a lot for just sharing with us. So many takeaways. For me, one of the things that I've been really thinking about, and I think I spoke to you about it already, is like just having like a mental health strategy. And thinking about, okay, what am I going to do if I feel that way, if I feel down, if I feel, or do I have something in place? Right? Because sometimes we just keep going and going and going, and we don't have something in place for us to be able to do. And we just and and when I say have it in place, we're not intentional about it, right? Sometimes we might feel, I'm stressed, let me just go for a walk. But are we intentional and saying, okay, this is what I have in place? If anything, if I feel down, at what point, how do I know that I am feeling down? And what am I going to do about it before it gets worse? Things like that. And I wish we had more time, because it would have been nice for you to go through more of the the heart set mindset bit. I know Tina, that is one of the things that Tina likes as well, with that interior empires. And I like how you gave that um that picture that you had with the 7 factors that are threatening the mental health of women.
Yeah.
And I wish we had more time to actually just look at that. But
Yeah.
again, time is not on our side. But just thinking of so many things, like for example, the hustle thing. That's one of the words I just don't like. I'll be honest with you. That hustle thing, I'm not into that at all. And it has become a culture where we say, oh, that's my side hustle, and I am a hustler, and you hear these things. And that was not what God called us to. And there's so many things you brought up, like for example, linking self-worth to success. We find that a lot. So if I could have gone on and on, because I have so many things I wrote down there, but I just want to say thank you. And I will allow, I will just stop so that other people can share as well. But thank you so much, Maz, for everything you shared so far. And yeah, just grateful. I will stop so that others can talk.
Okay, thank you. And I do apologize, guys. It was a whistle-stop tour because I could talk all day about those things, but I wanted to make it generic and comprehensive, not to overwhelm you with too much info, because it can get quite deep. But yeah, it's really interesting and I'm passionate about it.
Oh yes. I can see that, and I can see why it is. I can see it's part of you, right? To look at that, and I can see why you have, over 15 years in that field, because yeah, it just comes naturally. Yes. Any thoughts, anybody? I see Margaret has joined us. Thank you for joining us, Margaret. Any thoughts, Tina, Alison?
Hi, morning, everybody.
Morning,
Morning.
Alison.
Thank you, Mars, for that comprehensive. You may think that you didn't have enough time, and maybe you didn't, but it was comprehensive. A lot of food for thought. Um, Thanks again. Thanks again. What struck me is that you could have mental health without having any physical um, manifestations, as it were. Those were not your words, but that struck me, that you could have mental disorders without you having like a nervous breakdown or anything like that. And that caused me to stop and think, maybe it's true. And then again, too, life is so busy, that sometimes you just keep going like a choo-choo train, and it's not until you really start to feel the effects on your body you realize then you have to, stop and take note, and it's really a mental issue. You're trying to run here, do this, and you're just busy, and according to you, it's not productive, just busy, that was another takeaway for me. But there's a lot of food for thought in there, and but God gave us solutions for life. you know um if we keep our minds stayed on that, this scripture was coming when, the things that Mars was talking about is so real. The way our situations are, and how our very situations have us, running like a headless chicken, and have us thinking, even with bereavement and all that. But God gave us an answer. He said he keeps us in perfect peace when our minds are stayed on him. Not to say that there wouldn't be tribulation, there wouldn't be problems, because he said that there would be. There would be matters that we have to think on, we have to figure out and all that. But the beyond, the be all and end it all is really in Christ. Somehow there's an anchor, a stability, that happens if we would run to God every time, just as when Mars is walking, she has stuff to figure out. Some of us do that. Take a stroll, take a walk, move away from the thing itself, and and you just put your mind back on Christ and say, okay, how are we doing this? How are we getting this done? So really and truly, it's right back to the word. Though all the matters that Mars spoke about is real. It's not abnormal, it's normal, and it's real. But God gives us the answer to really run to him. That's sometimes the last thing we will do, but we have to practice, train ourselves, and according to the saying, be intentional to run to God with whatever it is you have to figure out, because he gave us the Holy Spirit to help us. We really can't do much without the Holy Spirit. Yes, we have our own brains, and we went to university and all like that, but God has a higher power. He has higher knowledge. So it's good to tap into him. But this was an excellent presentation. Janice, I'm sorry it didn't go on for longer, but thank you again, Mars, for sharing your expertise. According to Janice, yes, I see the passion, and praise God for you and where he has placed you to go into the minds of people to help them. Thank you again, Mars. Thanks, Janice.
Thank you. Just to add, thank you for those insights. It really is helpful. I was going to say, what was I going to say? Spirit, yeah. Ultimately, the Holy Spirit is our counselor. And yes, we can go to him anytime. But, sometimes when your home is cluttered, say you're a hoarder, you need help to remove some of those things. So someone's mind who is overwhelmed and cannot keep their mind stayed on Christ, they forget. So sometimes people do need assistance to see clearly, to be able to hear clearly, because they are so overwhelmed. And not just like you say, you don't have to have a mental health disorder. You could just be, because there's many of us that are walking around undiagnosed. Many people, you're looking at some of your family members, you're thinking, I always knew that Uncle Billy was a little bit, something wasn't right there. But that's why it's important to get help, so that as well, we do not affect future generations. If we want to break generational cycles, we need to be the example and cultivate better environments. And it goes back to the thing about spiritual bypassing, because if you're spiritually bypassing, how can you be honest with God? How can you even receive salvation if you don't first acknowledge that you need help, that you are a sinner, you need help? If you feel you could do it all on yourself, then you make Christ's work on the cross null and void, because you feel, say you can do it, and nobody doesn't need to help you until and God allows us sometimes, like he can humble us. And so we need to do that. So if we're not being honest with God, and how can you even receive forgiveness? Have you even repented if you keep lying to yourself that, oh, this issue's not a problem? This just like someone who is drunk. What's the first thing someone who's drunk says? I am not drunk. Can't even stand up. Everybody else can see you're drunk. So let's not be like that. Let's be honest. And I see that Tina's put that in the chat about the need for honesty and yeah, and seeking help. By the way, I am a coach. I've had coaching. I've had therapy. I've had therapy in the past, and I seek to get ongoing as part of my professional and personal development because I haven't arrived. And as long as I inhabit this body in this life, I'm going to need some help all the time. So I have thrown shame out the window. And yeah, people say, oh, some of the patients, and I make this joke before, Janice, but working on the ward, in my other job when I'm not being a coach, it's my job to discharge some of the mental health patients. And they said to me, you should be in here. Which one of us need to take the medication? You or me? And I said, well, maybe me, but guess what? They caught you. They haven't caught me yet. So just carry on. Well, yeah, we're all on the spectrum. Sorry.
Oh, thank you, Maz. Thank you. Okay, see some other things in the chat. Oh, well, yes, Tina was talking about be honest about our current mental health. And that is really true about being honest about that. And I agree with that. Because even for me, I didn't, oh, we lost Margaret. I know she was on her way to somewhere, so maybe she arrived. But I'll send her the recording. Yes, but I know for me, it has been oh yes, she has an appointment. Yes, she said, okay, let me just read Margaret's own first. She says, thank you, Maz. I picked up a point which my son actually said to me yesterday, to talk to someone and not bear all my worries alone. I have reached where I have an appointment and have to sign off. So she's okay. Yes. So that is important as well. We have to know when we need help. When we need to speak to somebody, we cannot just take everything in and think that, and that is why, God placed us in communities. God never meant for us to do life on our own, right? Because he knows that iron sharpens iron. Where I am weak, somebody else is stronger so that they can help me. And we cannot afford to just think that we can just sit there and deal with everything. And I know what I'm talking about because there have been times when I felt like, oh, I just need to deal with it myself. People might think this about me and people might think that about me. And instead, it wasn't helping me. Or people might think like, who am I to be saying this? Or, or to have that problem. And especially in business, I remember in my early years, it felt like, especially early years of coaching, it felt like, oh, who am I to have a problem and talk about my own problems? I'm a business coach. I'm supposed to have it all together. And I thank God that, very early he showed me that, look, you're not supposed to have it all together. And then he gave me coaches and mentors who just don't have it all together. And they just tell you, and they tell you all their mistakes, all the mess, everything. And then you just realize, oh, well, and then so it helps you. It helps you to realize that, look, we're all on a journey. God is just helping us, holding our hand each step of the way. And we can't think that way. So that because when we start to think that way, we keep all the problems, we keep all of those things to ourselves, and we're not helping ourselves. We're just destroying ourselves. And those things, when we see, I know I'm not a mental health person, expert or anything like that, but when we see, let us say somebody has gone to the point maybe where we see, like we see back home, that person lost it already, that person, it started somewhere.
Right.
It started somewhere. And the thing is, well, especially when you come from, like, back home, we're just saying, oh, that person, like, oh, there's always that one, what. But we never stop to really think, how did that start? Where did that come from? That person may have been reaching out all the time and we didn't know, or maybe that person felt I need to be the strong one for the entire family, and they never, you know, thought of seeking help. So it could be so many things, and we cannot just be there sitting there bearing all the problems and all the worries on our own. It doesn't help. And so back to what Tina had said about, you know, being honest with our current mental health and the seek help again when you, sorry, okay, that has to do when the bucket is overflowing. And I remember when you gave me that thing about the bucket. Remember, Maz, when you were speaking to me about that and whatnot. And it is important to know that, because sometimes we're not even thinking. First of all, a lot of us, right, don't even look at ourselves as having a bucket. For
True.
instance,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Mhm.
And then so much less for thinking like, okay, how much can I take? At what point? And then when we find out now, you know, when they say the straw that broke the camel's back, is at that point we realize, okay, that really was the last straw. And look at how I reacted.
Yeah.
But we never thought about the bucket that was filling all the time.
So true. Yeah,
So
and that's why awareness is needed, Janice, because I know every year people probably think, oh, we have this, oh, do we have to have this policy? Do we have to have this in legislation? I would say sometimes it can be tokenistic and what have you, because it costs the economy quite a lot when people are off sick. When you're sick, you cannot be productive. And it's this thing about knowing, you know, like scripture says, people perish for lack of knowledge. Like I say, in my other work, when I'm trying to discharge the patients, especially, and you know who I see overrepresented, Black people, we're overrepresented. And when I ask them, how did you get here? Most of them will tell you, I don't know. Just let me out. You know, there is no acknowledgement of what came before. And these people are, some of them, yes, have been in the armed forces. Some of them are teachers. They've been in stressful professions. But they often worry, what will people say? But there is always, like I say, the warning signs are there. There is a cause, there is an effect. And yeah, so we need to acknowledge that. And like I say, I want the church actually, we need to play a part in this to be part of the healing and recovery. And no, I was at a conference. There's a conference going on, mental conference about the church, and they had various speakers, psychotherapists, all kinds of things. We're talking about, you know, things that we don't address in church, domestic violence and all kinds of things. And that tells me, Janice, that there is still a high prevalence of these things and people are suffering in silence. And I don't think that is acceptable in 2024. So we need to know the cause and effect. As Dr. Raver says, get to the root. Because whatever you don't address, your kids will have to address and your grandkids. And so let's do the work. Let's do that. We all have inner work to do because God made us and what have you, but we suffer the effects of this world, and that looks differently for each of us. And I know that even within my family, I'm quite big on breaking generation, or at least I'm trying. And I know that attracts a certain level of warfare. And so, yeah, just being mindful and being compassionate, by the way, being compassionate. So I used to say, my grandmother back home, she said, you deal with the mad people then? So she used to say, it's like, Grandma, we don't say that. But those people are you and me, essentially. They're you and me. They weren't always like that. Something happened. And when we've had enough, because we know that pressure causes pipes to burst. Let's not let the pipe burst. Let's address, remove the blockage, do what you have to do. Like I said, you wouldn't drive a car without any petrol. Do not try and overrun yourself without seeking the help. So yeah, that's the message. Please don't suffer in silence. And it doesn't mean you're any less of a Christian. Many people say, oh, the faith, I don't have faith. You know, you don't have enough faith if and all this nonsense, or you're possessed, and these lies that we believe that are designed to keep us in a pace of captivity. So yes. Thank you.
amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Maz. Thank you. Oh, I think we lost Alison.
Yeah, I know people have to go now. We're over time.
Yes, but thanks a lot for today, Maz, and we really appreciate. Oh, she came back. She must have been Alison, can you hear me? I think we lost you a bit.
Alison, you didn't like what I said, so you run off.
Sorry, no. I'm off.
Sorry?
You know, the signal keeps dropping.
Oh,
Yes,
The
yes.
signal kept dropping. So
Yeah.
I still didn't hear what you said.
Oh,
And I don't run away.
oh, don't worry. We've discussed it,
I
but thank you for being here.
yeah. So yes, so before we go, any
don't
final
run. I
words?
didn't know. I didn't hear what you
Sorry, repeat that, Alison.
said. Oh no, I said I didn't hear what the discussion was, where the discussion was going because I got cut off. So I'll listen.
Okay. All right, no problem. Yes. So yes, so just before we go, if anybody has any final words, any final thoughts?
Say it again in the recording, but I don't.
I'll just reiterate to Alison that we were just tidying up and just summarizing that we shouldn't suffer in silence. No, it's like a pressure cooker. No, when you have to turn off the stove, don't allow it to explode and take the necessary action. Yeah. Yeah, I see that she's put in the chat. So she might not have caught that, but yeah, that's the essence of the message.
Well, thanks a lot. Thank you, Maz, for sharing with us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And yeah, that was a really good session, and I really appreciate it. And yeah, so anyway, just let us really look after ourselves, look after our mental health. Let us put something in place. We have Maz here, so please reach out to her if you need help, if you need somebody to talk to, if you need, her to help you with a coping strategy, develop, she's there. She's an expert at what she does. It's she's not just saying things for saying its sake. Right? She's an expert in that field, and it's always an honor to have you there, Maz, and thank you so much. And yes, so wishing everybody a great rest of the day and a great weekend ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. And if you need to go further in depth,